Hey folks, welcome to Between Awesome and Disaster. This is your host, Will Carey. Thank you for tuning in. I hope that you're having a good day and that if you are looking to accomplish something, that you have an idea of what you are aiming to do, and I know you're going to do it. So keep working at what your dream is. As cheesy as that sounds, I think that's important, and it plays in well today with today's conversation. My guest on the show today is comedian and writer Jaqi Furback. Jaqi is a comic that I've known in passing for a long time, and we initially connected talking about we traveling in Thailand. I believe she had either just been or I had been, and she was getting ready to go, and that was when we first kind of had a little bit of a back and forth outside of just pleasantries and at stand-up comedy shows, and we had a really thoughtful, interesting conversation, and I took a lot from this. And something else that I want to something else that Jaqi said that really blew my mind. It's not on the podcast itself. After we recorded, we were having beers in my kitchen, and we talked a little bit about this, and she brought up this idea, and I can't tell you what the source is on this, but it makes sense to me. She told me that when a fetus, a human fetus, is determined to be male, it is immediately, like, I don't want to say attacked with testosterone, and that eliminates 70% of that fetus's communication skills or communications ray, compared to a fetus that's determined to be female that does not. And essentially, boys, including myself, are born at a deficit level of communication skills, which, if you've listened to any comedy or had a conversation with someone of the opposite gender in your life, that might seem to make a whole lot of sense. And now I feel like I feel like a lot of the things in the way I try to express myself make a lot more sense. And part of doing this show is to better communicate and to better make myself understood and to understand others. And now I'm functioning with this idea that I'm working at a deficit in terms of my ability to communicate, which in the world that we are in today, deciphering intent is like next to impossible, because you would know exactly what you meant when you wrote or said something, but someone else with different life experience has a completely different reaction and is offended by what you said. And that back and forth, I see it play out on the internet all the time, is fucking exhausting. Like, no one is hearing each other. Like, I feel very rarely heard when I'm discussing things publicly. Privately and face to face, I feel like I'm able to decipher intent and express intent and reasoning much more clearly than I do online, which is why I try not to engage with people publicly. But even with my communication deficit, I think Jaqi and I had a really thoughtful conversation, and this is one where I was able to, like, kind of sit back and listen a lot, and I feel like I learned something about myself and to try to reconfigure things talking to Jaqi. And we got into some very intensely personal stuff. So I really enjoyed this chat, and I think you will too. So thank you guys again for listening. If you enjoy this show and want other people to know about it as well, and I know that you know I do, feel free to tell a friend. We are on iTunes or Apple Podcasts, because iTunes is going away soon. End of an era to me personally. We're on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, and Spotify. Finally figured out how to get us on Spotify, so I'm very excited about that. So you can also follow me on Twitter at Comic Will Carey, and you can follow the podcast at AwesomeDpod. Check the description for the links to our new Patreon feed, and I will have some cool bonus goodies for you if you want to check those out. And thank you guys again for listening, and let's go to my chat with comedian Jaqi Furback. idea first, you know?
Okay, so do you want to know the history of David Icke?
I'd love to. Let's start it off. Let me get that Joe Rogan demographic.
Yeah, right. No, so David Icke, I fell down a rabbit hole one night, and so David Icke's whole theory is that there was a long time ago, before the meteors hit and killed all the dinosaurs, there was like a super smart race of dinosaur that knew that the meteor was going to crash into Earth, and so they built these spaceships and they took off and left all their shitty cousins on the planet still to get extinct by the meteor. Meanwhile, they took off to the Draco star system, hung out there for millions of years, but now they want their Earth back. So what they're doing is they're coming back to Earth and they're inciting wars through manipulation, which like they're fucking dinosaurs. Why don't they fucking just bite into us? I'm sorry, I should have asked if I could say fuck.
Well, because fuck yeah, of course.
Okay.
You can say,
Okay.
If you can't curse on a podcast, where can you?
Right. I try to respect people's boundaries. But yeah, so they want their Earth back, but they don't want to actually fight us for it. So they're like coming back and they're starting these religious wars through manipulation. And they're like another version of the Bilderberg sort of theory, where it's like they're these secret lizard people that actually shapeshift into human form. And he was in an elevator with one once, he gave a speech at this convention center, and the dude got on the elevator and he was so angry and he was so mad and he was turning bright red in his face. And then all of a sudden he got so angry that he lost his form, and David Icke saw the lizard person face to face.
Okay.
Yeah. That's the theory.
Well, as far as like inciting wars through manipulation, that I believe is happening, but I just don't think it's happening by lizard people.
Yeah.
Because that's the way that you can get normally very rational, sane people who agree on things to fight each other. And I watch that happen all the time on the internet.
Yes.
Every day. So that's And why does he believe this? Is he trying to awaken humanity? Is he trying to sell some books? What's the
little a little a B? I think
A, B.
He sees an opportunity, but he also has a purpose. The ultimate entrepreneur.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
There's some way to monetize any You're always looking for any idea to monetize whatever crazy ideas out there.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I fell down. The rabbit hole ended with me watching a video at 3 a.m. of news reports news reports that had like glitches on them and stuff, where it like made the news reporter's face look like it was like really big eyes all of a sudden, or like a tongue sticking out, whatever. And the sad version of Mad World was playing in the background. And I just sat there at 3:30 in the morning and went, oh my God, I think it's real.
Sounds like an ambient dream.
Yeah. Oh, it so was.
Oh, that's hysterical.
I mean, that song puts an ambient in your mouth like immediately just upon hearing it. So
yeah, that and like most Leonard Cohen makes me feel that way also.
Yeah.
Like that song Perfect Day, or I don't know if that's him or not, but that song Perfect Day from Trainspotting is just like the ultimate like shit is going wrong kind of song. Oh gosh. Is it the internet that makes this shit able to like have some kind of credence? Because I feel like there was a time when, before the mass spread of information, where the crazy people were just they were like open micing it in the park.
Sure. But there was also a level of control over what was released. Like there was a time when people, like the level of information was so controlled based on how much money you grew up with, that like it's a bad and a good thing, right? So like there was a time when your ideas, whether or not they got to a mass audience, was strictly based on whether or not you could afford a printing press.
Yeah.
So for the people that had great ideas but no printing press and no access to one, those ideas never like made it, no matter how good they were.
Yeah.
But now it's just like just straight into Twitter.
Yeah, and and it can get picked up by even like the smallest amount of fringe people, and then suddenly it's like a
it's
belief.
real.
Suddenly it's a belief system.
Yes.
Oh my! Oh my! that's the kind when I think about stuff like this, and then I read reports about how like scientists say that the Earth is doomed by 2050. I'm like, good, bring it on. Do we deserve a continued go at this?
2050. Oh my God, that's perfect timing.
Yeah.
I like that report. I want you to send me that article. I'm writing a book right now about something that happens like in 2040. I've gotten into futurism and like just not futurism, but like futurism / sci-fi. I'm writing fiction, I'm not sitting down and writing a PhD dissertation and being like,
of course,
let me pop this up on Kindle.
Right. Because then it's real.
Ebook. No.
Yeah, it's like I'm an author. Where are you published? By myself.
Yeah.
Like I feel like books are like the one thing where you can't instantly have credibility if you self-publish. Like self-publish means that you might even have less credibility, I think. When I'm thinking about it, like, bands put out their own albums all the time and you can listen to it. It's like, oh, this is good, or oh, this sucks.
Sure.
But like books, I feel like there's a certain threshold for like, oh, this is probably at least accurate. Could be wrong though.
Maybe right, maybe wrong. I don't know. I think there are two sides to it. I found out that The Martian, Academy Award winning film, which was initially a book, was actually initially a blog. So it all just really depends on how good something is.
Yeah, that is true. My favorite light novel series from Japan was originally online also.
Yeah.
So I'm a hypocritical piece of shit.
Most of the shit is like.
So you're into sci-fi.
I do. I love sci-fi. It took me a really long time of denying that element of myself. To actually like learn to embrace it and be like, you know what, just sit. The thing that I love about sci-fi is that you can sit and have a conversation about like real things without anybody getting super defensive. Because no, it's in the future.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, it's like, it's the same reason that I love the film Who Framed Roger Rabbit, one of my favorite movies of all time. Saw it 3 times in the movie theater. I recognized its power in 3rd grade, motherfucker. And that movie's great because it talks about race without talking about race.
Right.
You know what I mean? It talks about somebody holding an entire type of person accountable for something bad that happened to him. His brother got killed by a type of person, which was a tune.
Right. Yeah, that's what I love about sci-fi is the ability to have like metaphors and allegories without having to like. I feel I get a little disinterested in like art that wants to like hold
Preachy.
my hand through social issues.
Yeah.
But that kind of stuff is just like, no, we're just gonna do this thing, and you'll think about it and be like, what?
Yeah, I grew up on stuff like my mom was a huge Star Trek Next Gen fan. Loved it, and I recently went back and watched all of it on Netflix. And Data is my favorite one of my favorite characters in the history of anything, because he, in all of the people on that show, was the most human of everybody on that show.
Right.
Where he was so growth focused. He was like a baby that was just like becoming a person. And it was so amazing to watch. But Sliders and Quantum Leap were other shows that I grew up on. And like Sliders was basically just a what if in every world, and a couple of them, I went back and rewatched those. A couple of them are coming true.
Oh, really?
Yes. There's one that's, I forget, it's in the first couple of seasons. There's one that's basically they land in this world that is where everybody is so far in debt to credit cards, and they're mass marketed at all times. There's like holograms advertising stuff to them, and just like buy it with X number of credits on your work whatever papers, and they're all in this place called the Cloud. That's what the city's called. They're in the Cloud, And they're
Yeah.
like, just buy this fancy watch. It's only 30,000 credits or whatever. And then these people are essentially enslaved
by the debt.
Yeah. And so, of course, somebody falls in love with a girl that's enslaved, and somebody starts falling into debt. And they're like, dude, you can't get collared, man. Like, stop buying shit.
Yeah.
It's great. It's great.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I so relate to that feeling of denying a thing that you like, because it took me a while to be able to have this framed anime poster, because when I was a kid, you were the freak if you liked anime, if you were watching like Dragon Ball Z and Pokemon, or like if your parents were negligent and you got a hold of Ninja Scroll. But now I'm at it. Well, it's also because in my 30s I just don't give a shit anymore.
Yeah.
I really don't.
Uh-huh.
So I'm just going to enjoy my stuff and talk about it with the people that enjoy it as well.
You find people that like it, and then you go, you're my people.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I'd kind of always, and we don't know each other super well, but every time like I've seen you around, like when we're doing shows, or the last time you did my show at the Crate, I've always thought we'd get along if we had to spend any amount of time like in a car or something like that, driving to a gig.
Totally.
That's what I think. So you say you were into your mom was really into sci-fi growing up. Where are you from?
I am from Seattle.
Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
I would not have guessed that.
Hawaii.
I don't know why, but for some reason I feel like for some reason when I like feel like look at your vibe on stage, I think Boston for some reason. I have no idea why.
I mean, I'll take that as a compliment, because a lot of really great comics have come out of Boston.
They have.
Yeah. No,
So-
I'm from Seattle.
What part?
I mean, I've been told Boston's the Seattle of the East Coast.
I could see it. It's like, cold, and there's hip parts, and then there's
It's a lot of white people.
Yeah, pretty
Pretty white.
pretty homogenous.
Sorry, what was the question? I got derailed.
What? Well, also, I want to confirm something. I've heard that Seattle actually doesn't rain as much as everyone says it does.
Nope.
People from Seattle just say that so that no one moves there.
Well, that's not the truth. The second part's not the truth. The truth is, it doesn't rain as much. The world exaggerates. Surprise, we all have the capacity for stereotypes, because
Sure.
we have to categorize things, otherwise we wouldn't survive, right? Like, you've got to identify a bear on a path and go, that's a bear, and run. But if you see a human in a bear costume, you're still going to go, that's a bear, and you're still going to run just in case it's actually a bear.
Exactly.
So,
the very base need to label everything
Yes.
that you encounter.
Yes, I must categorize. So Seattle doesn't rain as much. It does rain like more days than it doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
But rain out there means something entirely different than rain in New York, where like you hear the word rain and you imagine these like freaking monsoons that are
Right.
like coming down and you're drenched in 30 seconds or whatever. Rain out there, all it has to do to count as quote unquote rain
Mm-hmm.
is accumulate.
Right.
So like they have a little cylinder on the rooftop of the weather station, and then they go, oh, there's a millimeter of water in here. It rained in Seattle today. So when they say 90 days of rain straight, like that's, 90 days of like misting.
Yeah,
basically.
it's like if someone sprayed you in the face with with like a water bottle.
Yeah. So it doesn't rain as intensely
Mm-hmm.
as people envision it, I think. It's still overcast a lot, although that's changing too.
Mm-hmm.
Climate change is totally a hoax.
Yeah, 100%. The fact that I alternate between wearing a light jacket and t-shirt in all through June into July, and totally hoax. Not
Totally
happening.
hoax.
Not happening whatsoever. So what did your mom do? What was your home life like?
Oh boy. Oh, we're doing backstory, huh?
Yeah, I people have called me a pop punk version of Ira Glass. I'm trying to live up to my reputation.
Okay, cool. I don't think any of this has ever been recorded, so I usually just derail the conversations to the point where it's all a cartoon. Hashtag Who Framed Roger Rabbit. But My dad was a salesman. He was on the road most of the time by the time I was in like middle school, high school. My mom was a person who owned a salon until I was in middle school, and she sold it to be a stay-at-home mom. But I was the youngest of 4 girls, so she was kind of done with kids by the time she got to me. I kind of like just sat in my room and read a lot.
So you were the last of 4 kids?
I was the last of 4 girls. Like,
I'm not going to say anything that could be implied as sexist, but I am.
Yeah.
I could see how that could shape.
I was the boy. I tried desperately to be the boy for most of my life.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. That's why I ended up in comedy. That's why I ended up bartending. That's why I always get the, it's like you're not even a girl. Like, yeah.
So do you think that was consciously a reaction to having 3 sisters?
I think it was consciously a reaction to my dad having the poor foresight of making a joke at my 13th birthday saying,
"Oh no,
you were supposed to be the boy." We tried one more time.
Oh no. Parents just drop shit on their kids, and that becomes like the cross you just carry. That becomes your origin story. That's the book.
Yes, absolutely. Parents a lot of the time forget that children take things very literally.
That is true. I was just reading an article about how Mr. Rogers really dictated how the scripts were written because kids take things so literally.
Yeah.
And where you have to say things a particular way because you don't want to accidentally frighten children or give them a complex.
Yeah, we don't get sarcasm. It's like you were talking about your fiance and her mom, right?
Yeah.
I remember one distinct time. I used to be... Like, I was a little bit heavier than my sister. My sister, like the closest sister in age.
Mm-hmm.
The older 2 were already out of the house by the time I was like in middle school.
Right.
Because they were from another guy, not my mom's first husband.
Sure. Okay.
But I remember being in a dressing room when I was a kid, and like I was into baggy clothes. It was the 90s in Seattle. Baggy clothes, dark T-shirts, flannel, 100%. Meanwhile, I was a total Cube 93 girl. So I was like sitting there listening to SWV in my fucking Kurt Cobain shirt. It was the weirdest.
Well, I haven't heard of SWV. What's that?
It was like
Eurodance?
SWV, Salt and Peppa.
Oh, okay.
Like,
so like 90s hip hop.
Pre-Destiny's Child. Yeah, I was like super into 90s hip hop, but I was sitting there brooding in my black T-shirt and my jeans with holes in them.
Everyone thinks you're listening to Hunger Strike by Temple the Dog.
Totally. Everybody thinks I'm doing some Pearl Jam shit. That's my impression of Pearl Jam. I don't know if that's accurate.
No, it's pretty accurate.
It's pretty accurate.
Yeah, it's pretty dead on.
Cool. But yeah, I remember like emerging confident from the dressing room, and my mom just goes, "See, your sister could pull that off, but you can't." And like,
oh Jesus Christ.
Right? In her mind, she was joking.
Mm-hmm.
Question mark. In my mind, I was like, and now I go slit my wrists. What do I do? Like,
right, exactly. I'm going to be wearing suits to every formal function.
Yes.
Just to spite you.
Does somebody have a tie? I feel the need to wear ties all of a sudden.
Yeah, and the need to shave my head. Let's go for the full formal tank girl.
Oh, I cannot even describe to you when the movie The Craft came out how hard I was into it.
I hearing this bit of your origin story, we definitely would have been friends if we went to the same high school.
No, we wouldn't have, because you would have given me a little bit of attention, and I would have been like, oh, come here, and I would have soaked it up, and you would have been like, run.
You know, there's a part of me that's saying she's probably right, but then there's the other part of me that's saying I was pretty lonely for a long time.
we would have torn each other to the ground.
Yeah.
That's what we would have
We've
done.
gone like
we would have been the fucking
PG
Twin Towers, man.
would have been
Is
the,
that too dark shit?
No, I was gonna say like the PG-13 version of Sid and Nancy.
Yeah. Oh my god, I
that,
just watched 500 Days of Summer the other day.
Oh, it makes me so bums me out so much. It's
such a great film though.
Okay, so all right, so because I was a total emo pop punk kid till today.
Yeah.
Still.
Oh, me too.
So
okay.
we're going to talk about that. So that scene in 500 Days of Summer when the expectation versus reality split screen
orgasm.
Okay,
That's so good.
I have been in that. I have gone through that so many times, and just
100%,
the number of times I've like been sitting in when I had a car, just sitting in my car, and then just doing the big time to go to Taco Bell.
Yeah.
Oh my God! It hurts so much to watch his character go through that.
It's so well done, and they actually I found out that the director got hired a year before production. So that's why that scene is so great. Is he sat down and talked with the screenwriters for a year about that shot and exactly what they saw when they wrote it and stuff, and that's. To me, that's like, it's the most beautiful, heart-wrenching, and also truest
100%
thing where like everybody's had that fantasy and they're like, no, I'm real now. I'm aware of what's going on. But then they go, oh shit, no, why does my heart hurt then? Oh God.
Yeah. Well, why do I feel nauseous for no reason?
Oh, right. I was expecting things.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. And then the other thing I don't think they really talk about in the movie is that the self-hate from having the expectation afterwards.
Oh yeah.
Where you're just like, you fucking idiot. Why the fuck would you think that would happen?
Yeah, because he was still blinded at that point.
Yeah.
He was still thinking, he was still convinced that he was the victim.
Yes. And that's something that I started my part of my what I'll call what I felt what feels to me like growth is that as I got out of my 20s and I started blaming the other person less and then mostly just focusing on myself. Like, so that's just another different layer. That's another layer of like, well, it's like, oh, why would she do this to me? Well, she didn't do this to you. You had expectations that didn't meet. It's not her job to meet your expectations if it's not what she wants. And I'm like, I know, but it still hurts. Well, you got to get over it. Well, you're not helping me.
You know what's crazy is I always blamed myself. I never, like, I have a really hard time blaming other people for anything that I feel because I grew up, my dad and my mom, I guess, when they first got together, used to go to seminars like before Tony Robbins was Tony Robbins, or before Anthony Robbins. Is he go by Anthony now? Which one? I forget.
I think it's Tony
It's
Robbins.
Tony now.
Yeah, it's Tony.
It was Anthony then. And so like they used to like listen to Anthony Robbins in the car. And I would hear all this shit about taking personal responsibility for who you are and like your experience in life and like, you know, take charge of your life and you're the master of your domain, like all that shit. And so subconsciously, I think that affected me so hard, but in all the wrong ways, where it was like, no, it's my fault that he wasn't interested in me because I suck. And so stupid because the other aspect of my origin story, so to speak, is that because my parents left me alone so much, all I did was watch TV and read books, which programmed me to expect that I am somebody else's two-dimensional character, right?
Sure.
Because that's what society showed women to be at that point. We were never the object of growth, or we were never the grower. We were always the object that inspired growth.
You're the quest goal.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's interesting that you bring that up because I feel like that's also a societal way that like men and women are what's the word?
Cast in life.
Right.
Yeah.
So I feel like men innately, whether it's overt or not, there's this subtle bit of entitlement that you kind of is hammered in and then there's again this sort of like, maybe I'm going way down this Joe Rogan DMT sort of idea, but
remove that from anything.
But there's
sorry, I dated somebody that did DMT, and all of a sudden,
oh no, I never have
all of my attention.
But there's this sort of like, men get this like I feel like some men get this expectation drilled into them, and there's a certain sense of entitlement. And I don't feel, it doesn't seem like the majority of women have that.
No, because we're not taught to. We're not programmed to.
Right.
We are shown, like the thing about my experience was that I grew up seeing all these things in movies, and I grew up reading all these books where like not even the Babysitter's Club was about anything but. There was always like, oh, Tommy or whatever. There was always some guy that she was like, oh, I have such a crush or whatever. It was always about a guy. Right. Meanwhile, guys are over here getting their stories that are like, yeah, I achieved all. And also there's a girl that loves me now. Woo!
Sure.
And like women weren't really shown that when we were kids. So like there's a level of expectation. And especially if our home life aligned with that story of guy coming along, saving the woman, saving the day, and then, leading a better life with her by his side. If we saw that in our actual home life, that just reinforces the stories that Hollywood told us. Yeah. So like me growing up, my mom, she was in an abusive relationship with her first husband. He was an addict. Not abuse. I don't know if it was physically abusive, but it was. Sure. He was an addict. He had one love, and it wasn't her, and she was kind of the victim to that.
Sure.
When they finally got divorced, she met my dad within a couple of years of that. Not even within a couple of years. He ended up sort of emotionally adopting the other two, quote unquote, saving the day.
Right.
And then he went on to like earn this great living, support us to the point where she didn't have to work anymore. And so like I saw all of these things, these stories that I was presented with as a kid.
Right. And then it's playing out in your real life.
And it's playing out in my real life, which makes me go, I had such a codependent battle to fight until like last week. Like It's just insane what we like. Disney is still taught in schools.
Yeah.
And it blows my mind. There's actually a nonprofit organization working to get Disney out of schools because it has no right to be there. We shouldn't be teaching little girls that they're the victim of somebody else's decision to want them.
Yeah, I agree. And just like it's not a healthy way to think or to live, because you're going to not have any sort of, again, talking about all this personal ownership stuff. You're never going to, if someone is not telling you early on, go and whatever you want, go and get it and punch everyone that's getting in your way in the face, more or less. Yeah, you're going to be sitting around wondering why the world hasn't given you why you don't have all these everything that you've been told the world owes you.
Yep.
And yeah, that kind of bums me out too. The other thing I think about, I've been trying to think about a lot lately, as far as like the idea of like representation in TV and film. There aren't I can't think of a single movie or TV show where a straight guy and a lesbian are just friends, and they have adventures and go through life. I can't think of any of those. I can't. And this is also why I liked Mad Max Fury Road so much, is it didn't make a big like preachy handhold about, hey, women can be warriors too. They just had women being warriors in the movie.
That can backfire. That can backfire.
Continue, fraud. Yeah, I love this kind of talking about this stuff, because this is
like
how I learn.
I liked Mad Max Fury Road. I loved it. It was great. I laughed my ass off at the dude that was wailing on the guitar out front.
Oh, I could have. I wanted to be that guy so bad.
I was laughing so hard. It was so ridiculous. Like it was. Oh my god. And then at the end, I kept on waiting for him to come back after he got. Spoiler alert: he dies. No, it can backfire because I recently saw the movie Annihilation.
I didn't see that.
Annihilation is a Natalie Portman film. It was based on a book written by a New York Times author or writer. What's his name? I just read another book of his. I forget his name. Pardon me. But it was a series. It was a trio. And the movie jumps in, and the lead characters, they jump straight into this woman being recruited for this mission, right? And she gets put on a mission with 4 other women that are supposed to be experts in their field. And I was like, immediately, as a woman that has watched all the cinema, I was like, okay. And it was right after the Me Too movement.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, you're placating us. Go fuck yourself. There's no way 5 women would be chosen as experts on the same mission. Like,
Comes
there
off
would
as
be
a
at
little...
least one guy. And I later found out that the guy that wrote it and directed it actually did it based on his memory of the book. So he just didn't explain that the mission itself had been... there's a mention in the book. I read the first 10 pages. There's a mention in the book that they had sent in all other combinations of gender and job description into, like, this is their last ditch effort, basically, which makes sense in society. Okay. All right. Just send in all women. We don't know what's happening. Just go.
So it initially looks like it's this, like, oh, hey, okay, this is different from what I've seen, but it's really the result of the
of
fucked
all
up
the guesses. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I was like, I get that. I would buy that book and read that book.
Right.
But that movie's full of shit. And also, it's 5 women that have never met each other before, and they get chased through the woods by like this mutant bear, and not one of them goes, "All right, who's on their period?" 5 women that have never met somebody cycling. I'm sorry.
Right.
The author was a man.
I think there's a market for this kind of idea. I don't know who's going to do it, but it's definitely, I feel like the world wants it.
Wants what?
They want the sci-fi movie that has like
realism
of what women in that situation would actually be dealing with.
That's what I'm writing.
I dig it. So, okay, so you're growing up in Seattle.
Yeah. Let's get back to the backstory, Ira.
So, all right. Okay, so
I love this already. It's
so
fantastic.
so you're growing up in Seattle.
Yes.
Your dad tells you you're supposed to be a boy, and I know that this factors into how you become a comedian at some point. But is comedy part of it early on? What is the coping mechanism during this?
So he told me I was supposed to be a boy. I'm pretty sure it was my 13th birthday. It may have been 12th, whatever.
Which again is
is prepubescent, right before the hormones start kicking in. I know all of the sports teams. I'm the coolest boy. I was also the youngest student council president ever at my elementary school because I was the king of the school, not the queen. The fucking king. I was doing backwards granny shots at the free throw line. I was killing the game as a boy. And then they moved schools. They moved houses across the city, so I had to change schools. And then I rolled into this new elementary school and bottomed out.
Oh no!
Because I was sitting there going, "I'm the king of the school."
And you're like, "Who the fuck are you?"
Yeah, exactly. They were like,
so it started early for you.
Yeah. So then I didn't really, from 5th grade on, I really didn't have like a lot of friends. I just kind of like read a lot, and I watched a lot of TV and movies and stuff. My parents had 4 of the 5 movie channels back then.
And what kind of stuff was really connecting with you during that time?
Anything that was on.
Wow. I have been there.
Yeah.
My first girlfriend broke up with me in college, and I was so sad that I just rented 4 movies a weekend and ordered Chinese food every weekend. Yep. And looked forward to it.
Yeah, I think actually 92. Oh, that was within a year of me discovering Saturday Night Live.
Mm-hmm.
And
Okay, so 92.
92 was the freaking cast. The cast.
Okay, so
it was Mike Myers, Dana Carvey, Chris Rock, Adam Sandler, Chris Farley, David Spade. I think Will Ferrell was a featured player. Maybe that was a couple years later.
Those are like
but it
the
was
heavy
like,
hitters
yeah,
of SNL.
it was the cast of 20 that all went on to be major motion picture
Superstars,
stars.
yeah.
So I started watching Saturday Night Live then. Did I say Dana Carvey?
Yeah, you said Dana Carvey.
Dana Carvey, David Spade. But yeah, so I started watching, and like, because I didn't have any friends, I was just like, that's what I did on Saturday night.
Yeah.
And so I started getting this thing for comedy, and my school that I was going to at that point was a 6th through 12th grade school.
Mm-hmm.
It was a alternative public charter school.
Uh-huh.
And basically senior year, we got to choose our own senior project.
Nice.
So basically wrote a master's thesis at the age of 17.
And what was it on?
Comedy. It was actually on gender in comedy.
Ah.
And this was back when it was really hard to get connected with people.
Mm-hmm.
So like I remember I reached out to, like, I remember finding Lisa Lampanelli's website on the internet.
Uh-huh.
And like sending a blind email going, hey, my name's Jaqi and I'm a senior in high school and I'm working on this project about women in comedy. I ended up getting a hold of this woman that I don't think does comedy anymore. I forget her name. But she, when I came out to visit NYU for college, she actually gave me tickets to this like Women in Comedy Festival that Gotham was throwing, like before Gotham was where it is now, when it was still
right. It was where
different location.
Yeah, it was like on 22nd, I think.
Yeah, I think it was yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it's like a jazz club now, I think.
Yeah. So that's really like where I got my start in stand up, and then I did it once every 6 months to remind myself why I didn't, which was it was the worst.
Yeah.
I hated it. But it was also the only thing that ever made me scared before I went on stage, because I had been performing since I was like 4 years old in plays and in choir and band. And I was doing piano concerts when I was 6. And like I'd been performing just like, and I was also the youngest. So I was like trying to be the loudest all the time.
Right.
So like I got to...
So the performance thing was early on, and then stand up just becomes the latest
a
incarnation
part of it,
that,
because it was the only scary thing, and it was that. I have a habit of like doing things that scare me more, or like forcing myself to be afraid.
That is you seek out the fear and do the thing instead of running from it. Sometimes,
most of the time. Sometimes it's the opposite.
I'm envious of that trait, because if I sense any sort of like risk of embarrassment or disaster, I run so far from that thing. And again, I've been in bands. I've done stand up one man shows, played sports, the whole shebang.
Yeah.
I want attention, but I also don't want attention. Like,
yeah,
I want attention in a very specific way.
Yeah,
is I guess what like I think so. I think there was somebody on. So I heard someone say, comedians are like to control the way that the audience is laughing at them, like the reason why.
Yeah.
That goes into my whole other theory about how, like, as a society, we're all just craving control over something. And that's why Starbucks is successful, because they really sell control.
Interesting.
Because you can almost anything any way you tell someone to make a drink at Starbucks, they'll do it.
Interesting.
I think the only thing they won't do is grind up a biscotti into a frap.
Yeah. But they'll put one in the top.
Yeah.
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 That's there's a thought that occurs to me. There's that aspect of control, sure, But like, I think that, that's like the difference between improvisers and stand-up comedians.
Yeah. Improvisers, I think, are comfortable with the fear. Like there's that Del Close quote that's on the wall of the pit.
Yeah.
Just follow the fear.
Yeah. And also oh gosh. Oh, please let me not butcher this quote. I heard let's see if I can remember it coherently. I remember a quote that I heard once that was a Buddhist master talking to his student, and the student asks, how do you feel about fear? And the master goes, I agree with it.
Whoa.
Yeah, right? Isn't that a great quote?
That's great.
Yeah. And I think that is the most empowering moment the most empowering moment of my life. I went through a really difficult relationship that was very controlling, that was with another comic.
Mm-hmm.
And
Is this the one that you do that joke about?
I mean, which joke?
The one where you get undiagnosed as bipolar?
Yeah.
Such a good joke.
Yeah, I literally did get undiagnosed bipolar. She was like, I went into the office of my therapist, my psychiatrist, and she was like, I don't know why you're here. You're fine. And they took me off meds and everything, and I literally, like, I haven't had a problem since. Like, if something really bad happens, I react to it appropriately with tears, but like there's not like there isn't that sort of like fear of loss of support the way that he had convinced me that I needed him around for.
Right.
I think your voice just cut out.
Oh, hold on one second. I was trying to check one thing.
There we go.
There we go. Yeah, that need of support.
Yeah. Where it's like people that are very insecure have the ability to convince people that are optimists like myself that we need them around, especially after like moving across the country together and like being together for as many years as we did. But the thing that happened after we broke up was I started hosting this show in Bushwick, and I was doing most of the duties of the show. I was running around. I was welcoming people. I was greeting people when they came in the door. I was like hugging people, chatting them up, going, oh, how was your week? I haven't seen you for a while. Like whatever, right?
Yeah.
I was being the host of this thing, just like walking in the door. I was selling or I was getting donations for beer, like taking care of everybody's drinks. And then I was also, there would be some days where I was going up and doing sets. But because I was so focused on the other things, there were rarely moments where I actually was able to sit down and go, oh, what do I want to talk about today? Or whatever, because I was too busy. I like had to track somebody down to cover the bar so that I could go do this.
Sure.
And there was that level of like anxiety and fear that I went up on stage every week with that like allowed me to, like, the beginning of every set, everybody in the room felt it. We were all in the same emotional state of like, shit, what's going to happen? And then by the end of it, by like 2 minutes in, it was like you could feel us all exhale at once. And I would remember that I was okay.
Yeah.
You know?
Sure. Yeah.
And I think that was the beginning of that sort of growth for me, where I was able to trust myself again in the way that I did when I was younger.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And so did you start in Seattle or did you start in New York?
Ooh, whole backstory. So technically my first time on stage was in, what was it? December or hold on.
And
it was either in the end of 99. No, it couldn't have been. It was in 2000. Technically, my first time on stage was in 2000.
Okay.
However, again, I did it once every 6 months at like some shitty open mic where I was the only girl there, and I was also like underage. So of course, every creepo in the place was like, "Hey, I could teach you how to write jokes."
Yeah, of course.
Because
the
back
worst.
then it was like, oh, it was even worse back then. It was like, I remember when I got to New York and there were 10 women consistently at shows that I was at.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, whoa, this is weird. Because I did it in Seattle, and then I moved out to New York for a year, did it once here, and I did it at New York when it was old New York.
Right.
New York Comedy Club, and it was run like it was a bringer show, and one of the people, it was like a 3-person bringer, and one person didn't show up, and they were like, well, if they don't show up, you can't go on stage. And I was like, my fucking college friends are here. None of us have money, and you're gonna I'll buy the drinks for the person that's not here.
Yeah.
And thankfully somebody showed up at the last second, but it was such a cold like introduction to it that I was like,
oh yeah,
I was like, nah, I don't need to do this again. And then I went back to Seattle, did it for, I think I started doing it like once a month when I went back to Seattle. And then I went to Arizona and started like picking up a little bit. And I did it like 2 times a week in Arizona, maybe.
Where in Arizona?
Phoenix.
Phoenix.
Yeah.
I hear Phoenix is cool.
I mean, there wasn't a lot going on back then. I hated Phoenix. The only thing to do back then in Phoenix was karaoke or kill yourself. It's like the desert is where people think, like where things go to die.
Exactly.
That's legitimately,
you go to the
dogs
desert
run into the desert to be alone when they die. And people are like, we should live here. It's the stupidest thing.
You have to do something called karaoke or kill yourself. I don't know what that thing is. I don't know if that's your album title or if that's a really morbid live show concept.
I know, right? I'm always sensitive. Like, I talk to a lot of people, and I end up talking to people from Arizona every once in a while. And I'm sensitive when I make that joke. But I also, a lot of people really get it.
Oh, yeah.
We're like, yep, pretty much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd feel the same way if someone talked about Maryland. It's like, oh, the only things your state's known for are crabs and the wire. And I'm like, yeah. Yeah, but what you've also forgotten is that great Onion article where it's like all of Manhattan leaves because they realize New York's a terrible place to live. They reference Hagerstown, Maryland.
Oh, that's funny.
As like a place where you can get a 2-bedroom for $1,200 a month. And I had some of the hardest gigs early on starting out in a bar in Hagerstown, Maryland.
Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah, I bombed the first show. Then I just insulted the audience for the second show. They loved it. Then I bombed with the same material because it was the same audience. But you're basically like you're building the foundation of being a stand-up in a bunch of different cities.
Yeah.
And then you ended up going to college at NYU?
No.
Where'd you end up?
No, I went to when I was 17, I went to Marymount Manhattan.
Oh yes. I've heard of that.
Yeah, what's her name? Karen Fian actually graduated from there.
Oh really?
Yeah. I went there for a year. I was too young for New York. I was too sheltered for New York.
Yeah.
Also, the Twin Towers fell like 3 months after I left. So like,
right.
I have a habit of going places or like leaving places right before disaster strikes.
Shit happens.
Yeah.
Me too. I went to Barcelona, and then a couple months later, the guy drove the van down the thing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I moved the second time I moved to New York. I was working at a restaurant before I did, and 2 weeks after I got to New York, I found out that my old restaurant burnt to the ground. How's that?
That's pretty good. I once not to try to top you, Jackie.
Yeah, no, let's do it. I got a couple more in the cannon.
We're having a good feedback.
Yeah,
we're having a good back and forth. I walked to a gig in Istanbul, Turkey, down a blood-stained sidewalk.
Whoa. Well, that's before you got there, though. That had nothing. That's not after. Come on. You're not a premonition artist. You're just being in the world that had blood in it.
Then the next year is when they had the failed coup, and then the guy solidified his power.
Oh, speaking of coups, I went to Bangkok a few years ago, 2 weeks after I got back.
The coup happened?
And my friend that lives in Bangkok messaged me, and he was like, thanks, asshole. I can't leave my house after 10 o'clock now.
I think I think when I was in Thailand the first time, I think the military might have still been in power. It was like one of those transitional periods.
Yeah.
There's a lot.
Yeah, because I talked to you, like, that's how we first connected, was
Yeah.
I had just gotten back, which was another thing that I had done for the sake of fear, was I traveled alone, which as a white lady, I'm told to never do, because people could want to fuck me, could want to abduct and fuck me. And I'm like, I could just walk down the street in America and the same, ditto. Like,
yeah.
plus, I'm over 30. Nobody wants this, okay? Like, I've expired. There's this big pitch to women that grow up, this big story that's told to us that's like, oh, what? But it's dangerous. It's dangerous to travel alone. And it's like, no. Oh, you mean because of the like 5 reports a year that you hear about like women being abducted, but you don't hear how many men are abducted, and you don't hear how many women travel safely and return home unaffected, except they learned something along the way.
Right. You can also get abducted and sold into sex trafficking in America.
Yeah, no, that's my point. Like, that's like, I don't have to leave the States like to not have control over my body.
Yeah.
I'll just go to Missouri at this point, right?
Oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just whenever like my dad my dad, he's pretty conservative guy, but he, every time he brings up like, oh, is it safe there? And I'm like, Dad, there was a school shooting 20 minutes from your house.
Right? Ugh.
But
like, women, be careful out there. Oh.
And yeah, it's.
Did you feel safe? Did you feel safe? Was it safe there? I don't know.
My fiance traveled alone in Colombia.
That's incredible. Good for her.
And felt fine. So
that's great.
Yeah.
That's great. I also think that we come from a place where it's like New York, you learn how to be aware of your surroundings in a way that you don't in other places.
Exactly. That's a very good point that you bring up. I'm going to start asking people when they say that. It's like, where do you currently live, or where did you grow up? Oh, suburban North Carolina. Okay. Let me tell you what actual danger is like. Where I live in New York City, there's a subway stop that has a bunch of broken concrete. That's from when someone set off a bomb in that subway station.
Yeah.
And they just keep it there, and no one talks about that's why it looks like that.
I mean, the helicopter in fucking Midtown the other day,
She
right?
saw it crash. My fiance saw it crash.
My mom texted me and she was like, "Are you safe?" I was like,
A friend texted
sure.
me too, and I was like, "Oh, dude, that's like 10 blocks from where I am."
I love it.
It only would have affected my day if it was like 2 blocks away.
Yeah, exactly.
And
I would have had to walk around.
I know. Or it's like, or the other thing is like, whenever someone throws themselves on the tracks, like, that selfish bastard,
right?
Wrecking everybody's commute like that.
That is an instinctive feeling that I try to stamp out because it is still a person. I remember seeing like
you're a better person than me.
There is the selfish thing of like, but I have somewhere to be, but it's like, but also they perceived themselves to need to be somewhere other than where they were, and that's kind of the thing that they ran into. So it makes me sad.
Of course, and what I really wish is that there were more places that person could go to before they got to that place.
Yeah. Oh man, as a person that's been suicidal multiple times.
That's kind of my yin and yang is like very empathetic. Is like I can be very empathetic, or I can be kind of a selfish dick. But
and it's I think that it's a habit that happens. I experienced it when I mastered my depression and bipolarity.
No, this is good. Continue down this train, because I was going to ask you, because you seem like you're in a much better place than you are now. So I'm curious how you, because this is kind of what I like to talk about on the show, is how you pull yourself out of that pool of suicidal ideation and.
It's all programming. It's all it all has to do with how whether or not the story that you tell yourself about yourself aligns with the story that you see around you. I think that the number one cause of my depression personally was that my life wasn't fulfilling the story that I was told that it should be. And so the further that I got out of it, I go, well, I can either feel really sad and be depressed for like the rest of my life and probably end it early, or I can take control of my story, go, well, what do I want out of this? Like, what am I here for? It's really finding purpose. That's been the biggest change in my life, and like mentally, where like I notice, example, I notice that when I scroll, I'm trying to figure out the order in how to tell this.
Oh, sure.
Last year I stopped dating. 100% done. Said no to everybody, not doing it anymore.
Gotcha.
My mom told me that, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. So I was like, you know what? I'm out. I'm tired of guys coming in and expecting me to cave every guy wants an independent woman until they get one. And then they go, but I texted you and you didn't respond in 3 minutes, So I got fed up with like dealing with people that wanted a 2-dimensional character as their girlfriend.
Right.
And didn't they would be like, I love that you do comedy. And then they'd be like, you're never around at night. What's going on? Why do you hate me? So I got tired of all of that bullshit. And I was like, you know what? I'm just not going to date. And that means for me personally, because I get emotionally attached through sex, that means abstinent by choice. That means essentially asexual. I'm not going to think about anybody in a sexual way.
Right.
As I was doing that, I would notice every once in a while I would be on Instagram and I would see photos of my friends who were with their significant other. And there was a thing in me that would be like, that makes me sad. Like I would feel a sadness. And I used to identify that before I took the time off from like not even trying to find the one. Whoa.
Right.
My chair just sank. The world is telling me something. That's it. I'm stamped out. Can't say anymore.
That was the metaphorical hook from the side,
yeah, right?
from the side of
They're
the
like,
stage.
shh, you're telling them our secret.
Okay, so something you realized not from taking time off.
As I was scrolling through my phone and I was looking at my friends who were with their significant other at the beach or like on a trip or all this stuff, right? I would feel this sadness. And what I realized was the former self was ascribed, like when I would do that and I would feel that sadness, would be like, oh God, I want to have somebody to stand next to and like be in a photo with. I want to do that. But my new version of self was, I was feeling that sadness because I was looking at two people in a photo that felt like that was the thing that made them who they were. And I knew that I didn't want that. Does that make sense? I feel like it's not quite phrased correctly. This is the first time I've ever tried to describe it.
Oh no, that's absolutely. I think what you're saying I think makes sense. You're not so much you're not really reacting to what you would formally perceive as like you're missing something.
Yeah, it was a longing versus a me looking at a couple and being like, I don't want to be that. Like
right.
There was a flip that happened,
yeah.
and I was like, I'm fine. Like, oh my God.
Yeah. Well, and because everyone sells that like idea of this.
It's always a picture of smiling.
It's always a picture of smiling, or the great line from Portlandia, where it's like, I guess everyone's just cropping out all the sadness. And you're presenting this like, oh, living my best life kind of ideal, and then you're reacting to this idea that that's what you're supposed to want, and you don't.
Yeah,
have, but then you realize you don't want it or need it.
Yeah, I don't need it. And I will tell you that it's so funny the reactions that I get when, like, now that I've owned up to, like, just I'm fine, like, I'm good alone.
Yeah.
I just had a thing where, like, somebody snuck in and it turned out he was married, and that happens a lot. But that's an entire aside.
Right. Yeah.
But I don't need it. And so, like, when I talk to people and tell them that I don't date, like, because people will be like, oh, who are you? Are you dating anybody? Are you seeing anybody? I'm like, no, I don't date. And people freak out. People are like, what? You don't? And I'm like, I'm surrounded by love with, like, to me, love has become something entirely different from, like, what society has sort of projected the concept of love is, where, like, I have such a deep love and connection to my friends that I go on double dates with my married friends as a single person. And the three of us have an amazing conversation about stuff, and it's not the wives splitting off to talk about or to gossip about so and so and so and so, and the husband splitting off to gossip about business.
Right.
It's legitimately three people having a deep and meaningful conversation about life and emotion and depth and where we're growing and et cetera, et cetera. And that to me is so much more fulfilling than the image or ideal of, like, oh, he went to Jared.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I do.
So
I 100% do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The people that get pissed off the most are married men.
Yeah. I couldn't even begin to say what that is, because I'm not getting married for a year, but I guarantee you that once I get married, the way you live your life is not suddenly going to threaten me.
I know. It's so weird. I'm like, did you not know that you could just not get married? Did you get conned? Like, are you mad at me because you can no longer con me into being your secret girlfriend? Or are you mad at me because you didn't realize that you could just not do it and not hurt people?
I bet they're realizing both at the same time.
I know, right? That's why they're the maddest.
Yeah.
I also have had guys come up to me after shows after I've done jokes about it.
Sure.
And they've been like, they've done that thing where they kind of like try and hit a couple of different angles where they're like, dating's not that bad. Like, where they're setting up to be like,
sure,
go out with me, I'm different.
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, no, it's not bad. Like, God bless everybody that's in a relationship. I wish that had worked out for me, but I realized at a certain point that it's not for me. Because, you know, even if you and I got into a relationship, you could die in 6 months. And if I set myself and my goals aside to be your secondary character, I would still have to achieve shit when you die. Like, I'm not giving up my life to be your admin assistant the way most guys expect me to do. So I've said that to people. And the immediate follow-up question after they see me do jokes, I tell them that I'm not like, I'm living my own life. I'm not worried about finding somebody. They go, so let me ask you, how much money do you make doing this?
Yeah, they're trying to they're trying to what's the word I'm looking for? They're trying to justify every decision they've made via you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really wish, I mean, I have I have my own issues where I can be very, like, only interested in my own projects and what I got on. So I have like a light narcissism.
We all
are a
little bit selfish. Yes.
As most comedians do, but I just don't get the people that are so into what other people are doing like that, where they like Jen Kirkman talks about that a lot. Like, people are just all up in her business about the decisions she's making in her life. She talks about it in her stand-up too. And I just don't really care.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm interested in this conversation we're having now.
Yeah. Sure.
But I have no desire to tell tell anybody otherwise, nor do I have any reason to argue with people. It's like, oh, even if it's like, okay, that doesn't really make sense to me, but if you believe it and makes you a better person, then great. That's kind of where that's what I've been trying to practice the last however many years.
That's wisdom, my friend.
Oh, good.
Letting people live their lives the way that they choose to and not enforcing your rules upon them. Yeah, that's fucking wisdom.
Yeah, that's thank you. That's I wish we can get a few more politicians to think that way.
I know, right?
So much better.
At first I thought you were going to be like, if you could record that for my fiance, I'd really appreciate it.
No, I would not drag anybody else into my shit. I'm very happy where I'm at.
No, you seem great.
So thank you.
Yeah.
And so now so how many years would you say you've been doing comedy at this point? Because I looked at your website, and like, I know we don't see each other super often, but
research.
I'm always excited to. I'm always happy when people I like are doing cool things. It seems like you're doing cool things.
I am. I think so. Oh gosh. I'm not sure if that was a question.
It might.
It started off a question and then it ended up a statement, and then I was like, I don't know where to go. That just sounds like the setup for me to stroke my own ego.
Well, how long would you say you've been a comedian, like, regularly now?
Never.
Never.
I think that life takes us all on different journeys, and I think that comedy has been the most consistent thing in my life. I think that comedy has been my greatest and most abusive relationship. Mm-hmm. I tore my meniscus last year, so I had to stop doing as many sets.
Oh no!
Because I couldn't walk around the city. It's the most vulnerable thing that you've ever felt in your entire life, to not be able to use your legs in New York.
Right.
It was awful. And I cried and got drunk a lot for a while. And but when I came out of it, it was like a month that I was just like devastated and sad and fighting. I was fighting it. I was like, no, I can still go out. And then I would come home and my knee would be burning, and like, I wouldn't be able to move, and like, it would be, it was so swollen. It'd be like my knee looked like what I looked like fat. But there's an image there that's in my brain and nobody else's, because everybody thought I carried it well. But no, so like, it was this thing where like I fought it for a while, and then once I stopped fighting it, that's when I started writing and like really like working on. I rewrote Cinderella, which will come out later this year. Just a novella.
Novella.
Yeah, I just wrote a novella that's basically like the story that I wish I was told.
Excellent.
And then I came up with this idea that I saw a Tom Cruise movie a few years ago, a sci-fi movie, and there's this point where his character gets mad and frustrated with this woman for not immediately forgoing herself for the sake of the fact that he met Sam Jackson and realized that his mission was wrong the whole time, and she should go with him and change her entire life to now follow this new mission. And she was just supposed to like give it all, like she was just supposed to sacrifice everything that he had told her before that. And it's so perfectly like encompassed everything that I've experienced in relationships, that I was like, no, this is the real story that I need to talk about. And so I ended up sitting down and outlining basically an entire high concept like film idea that I'm now breaking into short stories, so that people like, because nobody has the time to read like 220 pages and feel fulfilled anymore. Yeah. They like need to read 30 pages and be like, that's a story, and then read another 30 pages if they like the first if they like the characters from the first story. They go, yeah, I'll read more of them.
Yeah.
I don't want to torture somebody with a really long book.
Sure.
But I'll break it up into books. and I'll be like, hey, here's this.
Yeah.
Here's this.
And are you seeing this as like the springboard to a film project?
Eventually, yes.
That's a smart idea. I've been thinking about, because I have my own screenplay in my head that I think I would want to turn into a graphic novel.
That's great.
Before because I feel like I could print a book easier than I could.
Well, yeah, no,
pull resources together.
Amazon makes it so fucking easy. And honestly, I tried to make a short film last year, and I'm still trying. We did the first shoot day, and then rain got in the way because there was an outdoor scene,
right?
And so we couldn't do the second shoot day. Like I almost got I was in a finalist for a grant for this film, and I still haven't been able to get it complete because now so and so has gone on to work for Paramount, and so has gone on to do this other stuff, and so has gone on to do this other stuff. So like I'm trying to complete this film, but like it's so hard. It's so much easier to get the leverage in the business aspect by telling the story first and then going, here's the story.
Yeah.
You want to help me tell it to a different audience?
Yeah. I think that's a pretty excellent way of going about it. And because I think that's how a lot of anime works, is that there is this successful manga or novel that
that's how it's pronounced. Manga.
Manga.
Okay.
I've heard it called two things.
Okay.
I'm a total noob. I'm sure there's someone who's like really into anime who's just like losing their mind at me right now. But,
one of my favorite films, sci-fi films, was either a novel or manga first.
Which one is that?
It started off, it was called The Edge of Tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Name got changed because the byline was so strong that they were like, it's called Live, Die, Repeat now.
That's a pretty good line.
It's so good.
Yeah. And then,
anyways, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. No. And then, so people love they fall in love with the characters, fall in love with the story, and then you get other people to want, like, well, let's adapt this for TV. And then if that does well, let's dub it in English for people, and then let's do more. The thing is that, like, anime takes like 5 years in between seasons sometimes. So it takes a really long time. So if you really fall in love with something, you're just like, hurry up and make the thing I like.
But isn't that the power of it? Kinda
is. When it's so hard to get, I feel like we're all just trying to find different ways of being noticed, and I'm always trying to be noticed for the things I want to be noticed for. That once you do have that thing, I still believe people say, like, physical media is dead or this format is dead. I think as long as you continue to make things that will really connect with people on a deep personal level, they will be willing to spend money on that thing.
That's interesting.
So that's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah. That's interesting that you see it as a trying to get noticed thing.
I do, because I feel like there's a lot of noise, and there's some easy ways to get noticed, but they might not necessarily be the right way. Like, I would rather people just
well, so what if you change that language? What if you stop making it about you and start making it about other people?
I'm listening.
So if you're constantly desperate to get if you're trying to get noticed, there's a level of desperation in that, right?
Yes.
Where it's like, oh, there's so many people out here and they're all saying things and it's loud and scary and like, oh, I'm gonna be drowned out and die. Like everybody's gonna be oblivious to me. Oh, I'm gonna sink into the bottom of the ocean and where there's just muck, and I'm gonna be swallowed up in this earth, whatever. But like, what if it's not about you trying to be heard and more about you trying to lift others?
I feel like I want to do that also.
Okay. So like, for me, when I discovered, like, cause like I said, comedy's been everything for me, right? For a really long time.
Yeah.
And no matter what I do, there are aspects, like even when I couldn't walk around, I found a way to still do comedy. I started taking classes at UCB because I was like, I need to I need to still be present in that headspace, right?
Totally.
Even if it's just once a week, I need to feel the connection of people laughing. And I also am blessed to have a job where I can do that.
Right.
Cause I bartend.
Mm-hmm.
But like, at the same time, the thing that I have uncovered with this new sci-fi thing that I'm doing is that it feels so much more important than anything that I've done in comedy. Like anything that I've done in comedy. Because it's the story that I'm trying to tell is a story about sort of like how we get blindsided by falling into line. And then how we can surprise ourselves by coming out of it. And particularly from a female perspective, the sort of control issues that come into it, where like the tendency towards isolation, where there are roles that are assigned, and you follow that role because you want to be a good partner, you want to be a good teammate, and then all of a sudden you're sitting here by yourself, and somebody goes, "Oh, well, I don't want to be here anymore, so I'm going to leave," and then you go, "Wait, no, what? We were I was doing this, trusting that you were over there doing that, and now you're not. You don't want to do that anymore." Like where does that faith come in? Where does that sort of like, we're both practicing our own things, trusting that we're going to return to each other at the end, and then you're just going, "Whoa, never mind."
Right.
And that sort of thing is like the reason that that like women become housewives for 20 years, and then all of a sudden their husband goes, "Yeah, I'm going to marry this 20-year-old. I want a divorce. I'm going to marry this 20-year-old." And then they go, "Well, then give me half your fucking money, bro, because I've been making sure your house doesn't burn down." And then guys are like, if you divorce, like, don't get married because then you'll get divorced. And if you divorce, you lose half your shit. Like, it's like, you made that woman sacrifice more than you'll ever know. And so like, that's sort of the story that I'm like I said, it's more passionate and it's more like connected than anything that I've ever done in comedy. Even my jokes about my shitty ex that like was garbage, and like the empowerment that I felt coming out the other side. Like okay. Those jokes were valuable too.
I am following what you are. I'm very much following what you're saying.
We have to wrap this up.
Probably,
right?
Do you have a?
Oh no,
do you have a set to get to?
No, I just didn't know how long.
No, you're good. I'm absorbing your wisdom and trying to be more self-aware of my own hypocrisy.
Oh, interesting.
That's my other bit of wisdom I've gathered over my years, mostly coming from the punk rock world, where like you're rebelling against the system, and then you find out punk rockers are as close-minded as the people they're rebelling against, and then you realize that the system you're rebelling against favors you pretty unfairly, almost across the board.
Yeah. That's true.
So what are you mad about? And then I'm like, okay, maybe I'll just write some songs that are fast and have power chords because they make me happy.
Absolutely. Like, I mean, find stories that you want to break for people. Like, for Gary Goldman.
I love him.
He's great.
I think I think he will do the shows in some point soon.
Yeah.
Tour.
I just hope he doesn't quit comedy.
I hope so too.
No. He did something. What did he say? He posts a lot of like advice to comics. And stuff.
If anyone's a comedian that is not following Gary Goldman on Twitter, start doing it now because he's posting these great comedy tips, and he's one of the funniest comics working right now. He said something that I liked, which is be the comedian you would want to see. That
is exactly the quote that I was going to pull up in my brain. He was like, for me, and he explained it. He was like, for me, it's me who I was when I was 23. I'm trying to make 23-year-old me laugh. Yeah. I think it was 23, 21, something like that. And so for me personally, all of the stories, whether it's comedic or dramatic or whatever, all of the stories that I tell, I really just want to tell to offer the other side of the coin.
Yeah.
That people haven't necessarily thought about.
The side that doesn't get told.
The side, yeah.
Because they don't have a good printing press.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Oh, that's a great circular. Oh, we should end it now. Are you kidding me? That was beautiful. So we're gonna do it like a full headlining set. So we'll have like a couple more gems in there, and then so it'll build. The callbacks will build, and then all of a sudden I'll go, "I'm Data. I'm out, bitch. I'm gonna slide to the next realm where I do this interview again and do it better."
This has been a great conversation, I think, Jaqi. But yeah, if that's what it is, then I applaud you for having that thought, and I hope you and I know you'll do it. I know you will. Not I hope. I know you will.
Oh, I'm doing it. Whether you hope so or not, I appreciate your hope.
No, yeah, but you don't need my hope.
But also, yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
That's the other callback, I think. I think that
my independence.
Yeah, I think this came like a nice full circle, because your independence and my inherent codependence in needing to someone to interview. So.
And I was that way for a really long time. Now I'm just like, maybe I should just talk into a microphone.
Well, they're not that expensive, so I could tell you what to get. So.
I could also go do a show.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, this has been great, Jaqi. So thank you so much for doing this. So if people want to check out your stuff, where do they go?
So you can go to my website, jaqifurback.com, JAQIFURBACK. I'm also on Twitter and Facebook, but I don't use them that often. I'm more on Instagram, and I use Instagram for stand-up, to like mention my shows, as well as little shit that I see around the city that makes me laugh, as well as I've recently started posting I feel like everybody has a few bottles, like, because I've been a bartender for over 10 years.
Yeah.
I feel like everybody has a few bottles of liquor at home that you're like, I'm tired. Like, I want to have something to drink, but like, I'm so sick of that bottle of liquor. And so what I've started doing is I've started like making unique recipes. I make bitters now.
I've seen this.
Yes. I make bitters. And so I've started posting like little recipes for new combinations of flavor that you can just make with, chances are, bottles that you already have at home. My bitters is an extra ad that you can like, people can hit me up and be like, hey, can I get a bottle of bitters? And I'll send it to you or whatever. But yeah, so that's those are the things. And everything's my name. I have a very original name, so.
You do.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Jaqi Furback. Hopefully we get to work on something at some point.
I hope so too.
Because that would be
You're
great.
You're a delight.
As are you. I also think if we walked into a casting office and said we could be brother and sister in something, I feel like that could work.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know why.
Yeah.
It's probably just because your hair's brown and so is mine.
Maybe.
Thank you so much, Jaqi. I like to make it weird right before I get out. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you doing this.
Thank you.
Okay, folks, that's our show for the week. Before we get out here, I want to let everyone know that Jaqi's short story series, the first entry in that series, Toxic Part 1, is available for pre-order on Amazon.com right now. You can get it for Kindle, so if you go and search Toxic: Part 1 on Amazon, you can check that out there. Thank you, Jaqi, for making time to appear on my show. It was great getting to chat with you. I also want to give a shout out to my supporter on Patreon at the awesome producer level, Mary Beth Mooney. Thank you so much for your support. I appreciate you being here early on. And if you guys want to check out some of the other stuff and rewards I have available for my Patreon supporters, you can go to patreon.com/awesomedisaster check out some of the stuff that I've got going on there. Even if you can't contribute, if you want to let other people know about the Patreon and about the show, we are available on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, and Spotify. And I would appreciate it very much, just as I appreciate you listening, because without listeners, I'm just screaming into a void. So thank you for guys very much for being here. I appreciate all of you. And that's been our show for this week. And I'll see you next week between awesome and disaster. Take care, everyone.